Pantry or fridge, standing up or on its side, age it for years or open it tonight, keeping a wine collection alive at home is tough enough without worrying that you're accidentally turning a great bottle into expensive vinegar. Today, the experts from Rey Wine Center join the show to clear up the confusion and make sure your wine never goes to waste.
Welcome to Stop Wasting Your Wine, a wine review podcast dedicated to helping you discover great wines with great value for every occasion. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Joel here, and listen, congrats again on finding the best damn wine show out there. Today, excited not only to have Colin and Aaron with us, and not only excited to be trying an awesome Riesling from the legendary Keller Winery, but also to dig into one of just kind of those big important topics that we haven't really dug into all that much yet, guys. We talked about it a little bit here and there, but today we're going to talk about storing your wine. So we're excited to be joined by two experts from the Rey Wine Center in LA, Ryan Julio and Shane Mason. Ryan Julio is a Los Angeles native whose passion for wine, hospitality, and community has shaped a career spanning more than 25 years in Southern California's food and beverage industry. As a fine wine broker representing more than 100 domestic and international wineries throughout the Los Angeles market, Ryan works closely with collectors, restaurants, retailers, and wine enthusiasts to source exceptional wines and build lasting relationships, and has developed a deep understanding of wine acquisition, cellar development, and collection management. Shane Mason founded Rey Wine Center after recognizing a gap in the Los Angeles wine market. He saw that collectors and enthusiasts had limited options for clean, modern, professionally managed wine storage. Rey Wine Center was built to meet that need. From the earliest concept through design, construction, operations, staffing, and marketing, Shane has led every aspect of the project. He wanted to build a trusted home for wine collections and a gathering place for people who share a passion for wine. Every detail, from the layout of the vault to the future tasting room and member events, has been shaped by that vision. Ryan and Shane, what a great intro. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you on Stop Wasting Your Wine.
Thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
I'm excited about this conversation because this, like Joel mentioned, is not a topic after doing this podcast for about 3 years that we spent any decent amount of time on. So to get some insider information from some experts is really exciting.
The only experience I think we've had this year is finding bottles of wine at our parents' places and then trying to drink them, which, you know, I think mine were stored on top of a refrigerator since the 1980s. That was kind of cool. I'm sure that's exactly how you're supposed to store wine, right?
Perfect. And podcast right there.
Yeah.
Hey, we did it.
That's it. No notes. Perfect 10.
No notes.
Nailed it. All right.
I love that. But really, I mean, you know, it has really kind of been that. We joked around a little bit about, you know, we have actually had those situations where we're like, oh, we're pretty sure if this would have been aged appropriately and kept the way that it should have been, this could be a really cool thing.
You'd be surprised you can find in your family shelves, though. I mean, I've found some awesome things hanging in my in-laws' basement in Minnesota that still tasted pretty damn drinkable and great.
Really?
That's awesome.
I've also been the unfortunate tester of a few collections that people have wanted to sell, and, you know, things as sad as DRC that sat in a not temperature controlled public storage that is just unfortunately a waste of several $1,000s worth of wine. So
Man,
it all
hurts your heart. Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Feels bad.
I imagine it's probably like a psychological aspect too when you open a wine that you know has not been stored well, like that, like something in your brain is going to be like, this can't possibly be good.
Yeah.
100%. That's also why I chose this wine, because it's one of those almost bulletproof wines that is a great place to start. It's where I started in collecting, and it kind of helps reduce the barrier of entry for people that really not just want to collect wine for hoarding's sake or being a completionist, but just want to see a different side of it and, you know, go on their own path as wine evolves over time.
Hey, even before we get into, you know, I'm so interested about learning just kind of your perspectives on the right and the wrong way to store wine, all that good stuff. You know, first, I just kind of want to know, tell us a little bit about Rey Wine Center, you know, kind of how it came about, you know, it kind of introduce the listener to just kind of the concept.
Yeah, so we were building a self-storage facility in Los Angeles, and it's a pretty expensive build. The way that we got the neighborhood to support it is we actually hired a museum architect, someone who normally works on embassies in Beirut, to design a self-storage facility. So you can go on our website. You can look it up, 7366 Osage, and it's pretty cool. I think it's a pretty cool looking building. And when we were already in the high art realm of architecture, I just started looking around at different types of kind of storage subproducts, if you will. And so there's private mailboxes, there's cold storage, film storage, and there's wine storage. And what I noticed with wine storage was that most of the competing facilities in LA didn't have very much availability. So there was a waiting list, usually months long, to access rooms where you'd store 200 cases or more. Those rooms are in excess demand in LA.
Mm.
And then any type of locker where you can access it from the ground and you don't need a ladder or a scissor lift, those were in short supply as well. So we saw this market. Prices are great from an ownership perspective. Value is great from a user perspective because all the inventory is taken. And it was kind of a natural fit for our building. We already had a design that went 3 levels underground. So we already had a natural cellar that was insulated. So we pivoted and we ran with it. So we did a deep dive into the market and what people are looking for. We designed it to be between 60 to 70% humidity, 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit, maintained pretty constantly. We have humidifiers in there, actually. It's well insulated, both underground and with additional insulated metal panels. We designed it for a mix to suit collections of all sizes. So you can start out with a 12 case collection that you're storing for $50 a month, and there's room to grow up to 300 cases for over $1,000 a month. We have that mix within our facility. It's it's hyper secure. We have like 4 layers of keypads to actually get in there. And, it's a business within a business. So only people that are members of our wine center have access to the wine storage area. Regular storage customers don't. So that's the history and kind of the design of Del Rey Wine Center.
That's incredible. So you were going down one path and you just kind of happened to be going down a path that just lent itself perfectly to wine storage and, the perfect kind of ideal temperature and all that good stuff for that. I love that you were able to recognize that and kind of pivot and take advantage. That's very cool. And so as you say this, I'm guessing that as we were joking about finding the, wine bottle at our parents and on top of the fridge, all that good stuff, that these are not good ways to store your bottles of wine. Why should the listener at home, kind of be worried about this? Why should they be thinking about the proper way to store their wine?
I think right now is the best time to be thinking about it, especially if you're of all of our similar demographic where home ownership is a little less common depending on where you're living these days. And
totally.
The term affordable luxury is often thrown around. I know the way me and my good friends all got into wine wasn't just through restaurants and, having a great palate. It's because one of us went to a wine event and we all kind of got a little buzzed and like, this wine is amazing. And
that's the way
it turns out if you buy more than 2 bottles, maybe 6 bottles, you get a price break. You're with a few friends. Like now we come home, we have 12 bottles of wine now out of nowhere. Or you have a dinner party and everyone decides to bring a bottle of wine and so 1 or 2 people bring something nice.
Mm-hmm.
There's always been this culture of holding on to wine, and part of that vintage part is exploring that. What's interesting, though, is despite the rise of young, fresh, drink now natural wines, and also the older generation selling off their cellars and people getting to try things that are older.
Sure.
It comes down to like, when do I drink this? Mostly because people are curious about like, how do I make the most out of this thing I've spent more than a beer for? I've spent $20, $40, $100.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that when I'm drinking this, it's the right way. And part of that is your circumstances. What are you eating? Another part's like, is it a paper cup or are you doing it in a nice glass? And a third part of it is like, should I hold on to it? And maybe it's worth laying down. And I think that part is confusing, but it starts from a place of, it's a good problem to have that you have too much wine to drink.
Sure.
And we can all agree on that.
Absolutely.
So
I have that problem. I have so much wine.
I have so much wine, I don't know to do it. And so part of it means even if you're just starting off with more than 10 or 12 bottles, a lot of people will consider putting it into a wine fridge, but that can get a little costly, especially just having an extra fridge in the house these days. It also just takes up real estate. So then maybe it's about finding that right place in the house. Or maybe it's just, I like a lot of wine and it just ends up like getting stacked in the fridge. And I have a friend that came over and he thought I had something great that he brought a year ago and saw this up there and we drank it and it tasted like crap. So why does this stuff happen? And it's because temperature and time go a lot into how we enjoy wine. And I think the biggest part of it is that temperature control. So, sometimes when we drink wines and you've mentioned there's notes like, I want to see how this tastes. There's something inherently about that wine. It's that balance of the acidity and the tannins, the thing that makes your mouth salivate or the thing that wicks away the moisture from your teeth that just literally tell your brain like, something's happening here and I want to know how this can be more delicious. I'm already liking it, but I sense there's something more. It's almost an umami sort of quality that can trigger that. And one thing that's really interesting about wine and the effects of temperature is that aromas and the tannins and the acid all get affected by temperature, and small little tweaks can have pretty profound changes. So one of the things that's first affected with wine storage and temperature is the aromatics, the aroma of a wine. And something I was taught very early on when I was getting into wine when I was, 19, a little underage, but getting a little sip of something from a family member or working in a restaurant is this wine smells really great. Well, those aromas will change and sometimes get better or worse depending on the temperature that they're stored. Aromatics, by definition, are fleeting. So we have these big, nice glasses to capture those aromas, but they change through oxidation and they evolve over time. So that's one of the first things that can be affected with holding on to wine. But I think one of my favorite parts about it, it sounds pretty technical on the surface, but it really lends to that umami third. I don't know how to describe this, but it's super nostalgic. And it's a thing called polymerization. And polymerization happens when the tannins, those molecules that bind to fat and give it that astringency in a wine, combined with the pigments, the colors of the wine. And as these tannins and pigments link together into larger molecules, they just taste less harsh. They feel more soft in the mouth and they become heavy enough eventually over time that they actually fall out and become sediment. But finding that sweet spot when something that might be really sharp and jagged all of a sudden turns into a warm blanket and you just have this knee buckling feeling as you drink it, all come from that kind of unspoken alchemy of time and storage.
That's such a good way to say it.
So, yeah. And I'm like, I'm trying to break it down in my head because there's so much there that was super important. I'm trying to think right off the bat, we have listeners who have been into wine for a super long time and folks who are just getting into wine. And so before we get even more into the technicality, I want to cross some things off the list for people because I think there's just some automatic places where people stick wine.
Sure.
I love it. Obviously, people just give you wine sometimes, and not everyone is prepared to store wine in their home, right? So it's just they end up on a little fancy wine holder that they bought at Home Goods. It sits on their counter, and it's in the, right in the kitchen under all those lights and everything, up on top of the fridge or in their back closet. So just think about those. Which are the ones you would cross out right away? Don't get the cute wine holder or don't stick it. What are the big problem areas and what are the variables that you just messaged that make those places so problematic?
You literally counted two of them already. So both of them being in the kitchen. So most people don't have a nice, really big open kitchen with a big island and the wine storage underneath. And I don't understand it. It's human nature for everyone to stash stuff above the fridge. Maybe it's the out of sight, out of mind thing.
That's exactly
There's so much room up there.
There's so much room up there because we never want to grab stuff on a day-to-day basis. That's great. I can put it up there, out of sight, out of mind. I'll drink it in a year or two. It'll be great. But everyone forgets heat rises. Yeah. So as time goes on, what may feel like you're walking around in your apartment or house at, whether it's air conditioned or not, at a comfortable 65, 70 degree, gets warmer up there. And if it's in your kitchen above your refrigerator, you probably bake or cook or use your oven and the heat from that will rise. And then you'll have more and more heat dissipating through, plywood shelves that are protecting your wine up there. And that'll affect it over time. A couple of weeks, not too bad. But even if you're like many homes, your oven isn't too far from your refrigerator and there's storage up there, just baking a round of cookies or things like that. And those big temperature swings also have a big effect on it. So a few weeks is fine, but the longer it spends up there, it can drastically start preemptively aging the wine, shocking the wine at certain points, depending on how cold and hot your apartment gets. So that's one thing. Another one too, as you mentioned, was that very specific home goods, your live, laugh, love wine storage drawer, right?
Yeah, sure.
Horrible. Yeah. Mostly because it's not just about, it's great that it's putting it on its side, but to be honest, most people aren't going to have issues with wine being upright. Like very few people have wine over 5-6 years where it really starts to matter. So, and we can get into details of it, but basically keeping the cork wet, it does help, especially over years.
Sure.
In a kitchen setting, not too bad, or a house. But the problem is really those decorative shelves usually aren't a display area, and they're usually around like a window area because it looks nice and it has planters attached to it. And that also dovetails into a second big offense, which is getting struck by light. And that happens more often than the storage over the fridge. And I see it in more of people's houses. Like, this is a really nice wine. It's presented and it's displayed out there, and it's just being constantly hit by that afternoon ray of sunshine. And it is not only cooking it, but literally having scientific and chemical reactions due to being sunstruck. And that is often where I found the most depressing bottles of wine I've opened at my friend's house, that this wine has just been cooked by the sun.
The more nicely displayed it is, the worse it actually tastes. Is that usually the case?
Yeah, it's a wine cellar, not a wine arboretum.
Yeah, sure. I love that.
So we want to stick it in a cellar. It's dark, it's cool, it's musky, it's out of the way of things. And we can go into how those have now been modernized. But in general, tuck your treasure away. You don't need it to be ostentation. It's not out there. My rule of thumb is the stuff you're displaying is actually more the things that's the ruse for people. Like, if anybody's at your house and someone just pops a wine, like, that's the stuff, like, let the plebeians have this low level stuff, and the real reserve stuff's tucked away either at a safe spot in your house, or, if you're a really good friend and you've taken care of a collection, you've gone to your cellar if they're very rich or affluent. But if you're like us and just like wine and we like to work and have a glass of wine every now and then with our friends, you can go pick it up from a wine storage and have it ready, and you're going to drink something with some buddies that's going to be amazing.
Nice. And this one can be for either of you, but Ryan, you mentioned storing a bottle on its side. And we actually had good friend of the pod, Adam, with Saffron Fields wine. He wanted to know whether or not storing the wine on its side, especially for long periods of time, still matters.
I would say it depends on what type of wine first. So older wines, say 15, 20, especially 20, 30 years ago, the technology of cork was much different. So while it's great that it's being exposed, the cork itself is being kept moist and it's kept from shrinking, there also can be a risk of cork taint as well. So that's when it's probably better to keep it on side if it's older, if only to reduce keeping them cork from shrinking because it gets dried out, and it also just makes it easier to store volume because you can put more on its side, and you can lay your cases on its side, just get a little bit more out of it. But what's more interesting these days is so many more wineries are aware of cork taint. 1% cork taint for a normal winery can equal thousands of bottles down the drain. That's every chance that a small winery has to make sure they don't lose a customer for life needs to go into that cork. So cork technology has gotten a lot better. Also, our culture and our demographic here, no one here looks over 60, thankfully. Like,
we're not.
We want to drink it
that would be
now,
rough,
or even 10 years is still kind of a now-ish rate.
Yeah.
Sure.
So while it would be nice to be able to store these on the side, it's not as pressing as it used to be. And if it is a wine that can be held longer, more often than not, those wines probably have better quality corks. They're tested for that quality. And if you're going to invest, 50 plus, might as well go that extra step and put it on its side, right?
Awesome.
Well, and that brings up an interesting kind of question too. And it kind of ties into with Ryan, something you said where you're like, hey, look, if you've got a ton of money and you can go and you can build yourself a cellar, and maybe if you live up north, down here in Florida, we just can't do it. So, but if you don't, maybe you look for something like Rey Wine Center, right? Where it's a beautiful building and it's something that's set up, it's accessible, it's meant for people who want to store their wine the correct way and have access to it. So I'm just kind of curious here too, what do you think, or maybe what have you observed is kind of that tipping point where the casual drinker, where they say, okay, this, the live, laugh, love rack isn't doing it anymore. On top of the fridge isn't doing it anymore. Is it a bottle count? Is it sort of a price point that they hit where they go, whoa, this is, I really need to take care of this thing? What kind of have you seen?
I'm happy to take this one if you don't mind, Shane.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that's how I got into wine. I got right after getting out of college, turned 21. I had a good buddy who liked wine too, brought us up to a local Los Angeles small winery. Nothing great, LA based. The wines were fine, but we got a deal on buying more wine, and we were a little buzzed. We just ended up with a bunch of wine.
Sure.
And once you just get more than a case or two, that's a lot of real estate in a small apartment for, two guys in an apartment.
Sure.
We also noticed it with our girlfriends at the time. Like, they're also going with us to these wine events, and we're picking up wine. And there's only really so much you can drink in one night. Like, even if you have a bottle open,
It's like, the limit doesn't
very true,
exist.
Jan. Even if we're trying to get through a bottle, there's usually something kind of open. The casual wine drinkers, we always talk about, what do you have open now, or what are you excited to open this weekend? Popping corks is part of the fun. But you want to have something on hand, especially as you get more into it, because the variety of wine is so vast. And so you end up with a little wine collection, not unlike, as you can see here, a vinyl collection. Like, I have a few books or wines. Once it gets even past 2 cases of wine, just realizing where you're going to store it, because if you have 24 bottles of wine and you're not drinking one every night, you're going to have things that are going to stay for a while.
Yeah,
and in a place where Joel is in Florida or Los Angeles, where we are, we don't all have air conditioning. And sometimes it can swing, even in you can't see me if you're on audio, but in air quotes, climate in LA, it can jump from 50 degrees in the morning up to 100 degrees in the afternoon. Wow. And that really big temperature swing can totally cook and fry some wine pretty fast. So you've gone out with your friends, you've bought some wines, even if they're just between $18 and $25. I want to make sure that I can enjoy that still and have that thing to share. And I think even at that 2 to 3 case tipping point is when it's good to consider, like, if the circumstances of my house and the temperature isn't going to be consistent, and I don't want to run my air conditioning all day just to make sure it doesn't swing like that, it's not a huge investment on your existing investment to just put a little insurance on it. And part of that insurance is getting offsite storage, where not only can you share a little locker and put some wines in there, it's a fun thing to share with friends. I know many of the clients we've been talking to often start with just, hey, me and some friends have some wine that we came back with from wine country, and we just don't want it to sit in our garage. It's too hot. We don't want to have it in our house because I don't want the temptation. Whatever the reason may be, sharing a little cage with a few buddies is a great way to start. That's how I started myself. And it was literally with a case of $18 wine at a now defunct winery called Rochambeau. And this winery used to have this, I think it was the world's largest rock, paper, scissors contest. And they had a fun pickup party. We went all up there, we got buzzed, and came home with a bunch of wine. And after that, we started collecting more. We shared that small locker, turned into like, oh, maybe I'll put some of the things that really need to be out of sight, out of mind. And that's another great reason to have it, is that if you have a small fridge in your house, it is really hard not to, every time you pass by that fridge, want to open some bottle that
Sure.
and the winery has told you itself, if you can be patient, 5 years will reward you, 10 years will reward you. So having it out of sight, out of mind, and making a more ceremonial approach to how you're going to enjoy these things, and you can make an event out of it with your friends and the people you want to share these bottles with, actually kind of helps to get the best out of these things, which are fine when you first get it. But some things, especially like Barolo, Burgundy, Northern Rhone, Riesling, Champagne, all the old world greats, as well as your Napa, your Santa Barbara, like all the best wine in the world. There's very few wines that don't benefit from a little bit of time. So why not? My suggestion, especially since I am on the sales side of wine, and I also have worked in restaurants where I try to also sell people to drink more wine, is get a couple bottles of the thing you like. And even if it just means you buy 3 instead of just 1, try one now, hide one maybe in a closet, just see how that tastes in a year. If it tastes even better, see if you can get a little bit more. You can hold on to it. And that entry level $20 to $30 wine has been some of the more profound wines I've had that have come out of the cellar. Some of the expensive, those are going to get better because they need time.
So like I have been able to get a pretty good collection going in my place where I'm now starting to have 10, 15, 20-year-old wines. And not because I'm well off, Joel and Colin, but because I'm in the north and I have a basement. I have a closet that I've converted into a little wine closet. And in my head, when I made it, I'm like, this is good. This is dark. It's in the basement. I should be good for a while. But it's 95 degrees in New Jersey today. And even the temperature in my house, I notice swings a little bit from I'll look in the closet, I have a little thermometer in there because I'm trying. It'll go from sometimes 70 degrees. What is that danger zone temperature swing in your space? If you're looking at trying to store wine in your own home, what's the acceptable swing over time in a really hot summer, really cold winter? And when should you start to kind of really...
For that, I kind of go back to my high school health teacher, or, aside from teaching us to bird and the bees, one of the things he said that stuck with me is anything to an extreme is dangerous, including moderation, to be fair. True. So while you don't want to have these big swings, if they're over gradual periods of time, in your own house in New Jersey, it's not like it's going from 50 to 70 in an hour or two. It's not shocking the wine. So it's going to slowly creep up and go down. That's not too bad. What happens is if it stays in that extreme area of not just 70, maybe the air conditioner breaks downstairs, or it's an older house and it stays at 85, 90, not just for a few hours, but a couple of days, weeks, it just exacerbates that maturation, the aging, that oxidation. And so that's when you can risk cooking the wine. The other side of it, and I would argue is even worse sometimes, having sent some wine to one of my friends. I mentioned we shared a locker before. He moved to Michigan. And it's really fun because Michigan and a lot of the Great Lakes wine regions, there's some fun wine coming out there, ancient grapes and Marquette and things. And he shipped me wine. I've shipped him some stuff from California. And unfortunately, once a wine's frozen, it's undrinkable. Once it's separated and the alcohol and the water content is all separated from itself, there's no getting that wine back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's another big temperature swing. And that can happen if you, like I said, are going to visit your Minnesota in-laws where they don't have fridges in the garage. The garage is 30 degrees way, 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 way lower.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the wine has to cook for more than a week. There's some storage places that offer generators. I don't really think that's necessary because it's an added cost to everybody. They're going to pass it on to the customer. And you really need to have a prolonged spike. I think, Ryan said, it's not just a overnight shock. It's a sustained spell of heightened temperature that you need to worry about it and protect against.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked what Ryan was saying about going in on a locker with buddies. I mean, for me, it's at what point do you run out of closet space to dedicate to your collection? And Aaron, I think it's so awesome that you have a basement. I live in LA. We don't have a basement. So once you start stacking cases, I think once you get to 2 or 3 cases and you're in a normal apartment like me and you don't have a basement and you're living with, someone else, you might have a problem that you need to solve with a storage unit. That's all I'm saying.
100%.
No, absolutely.
There is a whole too, just the social aspect that Shane, you were just talking about too, and that Ryan was talking about earlier. The social aspect of having that locker, having that space that you go into and you share the experience, maybe even there, even if it's just talking about the wine. Oh, look, I've been aging this one for a while. That's a cool aspect of it that really hadn't occurred to me until you were talking about that. I love that.
Well, I mean, speaking of what Ryan was saying about what have you got open right now, I mean, folks will have opening parties.
Mm-hmm.
So
cool.
A bunch of collectors will sit there with 14, 16 bottles on a table and a spittoon in the middle, and they're just cracking bottles. And I mean, it pains me because I'm a person that just hates to see waste.
Yeah.
30% of the glasses just aren't finished. They're just in the spittoon bottle. Let's taste the fresh one. It's kind of wild, but I've had there's some really cool stuff. And the collectors that have, the 200, 300 case rooms, they're like, oh, here, come on in. Let me show you something. And they walk in and they take something crazy out and you enjoy it. And, but I will say, Ryan, that this,
this Keller that you picked out for the show is pretty up there in terms of stuff I've tasted recently. So hats off.
Glad to share.
For sure. Yeah, and we'll get to the review section of the show here in a little bit, but I did have one other question. We talk about the kind of the social aspect of sharing a locker, but I'm sure with that comes sharing the cost. So my question is, and maybe Shane, you can take this one, what are we looking at as far as cost when it comes to wine storage?
Sure. So it runs about $3 a case.
Oh,
So to start out, 12 cases is going to cost you around $40. 24 cases will be about $80 a month, and then 200 cases is give or take $500 to $600. So that's kind of how the market works for it. Is everybody prices per case. I'm not sure what the costs are on the East Coast. On the West Coast, specifically in Southern California, you'll find it ranges anywhere from $2.50 up to $4 a case, and it's kind of interesting because you would think the smaller lockers would give you. You would think as you get bigger that there'd be kind of more bang for your buck, like a value factor. But because those larger spaces are in such short supply relative to the people that want it, it can actually sometimes get more expensive per case as you get bigger. And the case math is a little bit wonky. As any amateur or serious collector would know, the boxes aren't uniform, and so every wine storage place is just roughly estimating how many cases would fit within their units. And when you have, a large walk-in space, it's also up to you how you want to configure it. I mean, you can stack the boxes to the ceiling and not be able to access any of your goods, or, you can create aisles, which is going to reduce the number of cases, and that rent cost is fixed. So the math, that kind of varies, but roughly speaking, you're looking at about $3 a case.
That is insanely cheaper than I thought you
way
would
cheaper
like.
than I thought. Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought it was going to be like $12, $15 a case or something like that, if not more. But $3 a case is that's really not that much to save your wine, especially if you're spending a couple $100 a case on the wine.
It's kind of a rounding error if you're at least halfway serious into the hobby. It's not much money.
Sure.
I mean, you do need insurance, which is a separate thing. We don't handle insurance. I can't really speak to that. Insurance and storage costs. Yeah, I thank you for recognizing it. We think it's a great value too.
Oh yeah. Like I was just, I was looking at your website before y'all came on. You mentioned the building, and it's like a beautiful building, and it just, I was looking at, it, I was like, well, this is gonna be fun to talk about, but there's no way I could ever afford to keep my wine in a place like that. And then you're like $3 a case. I'm like, oh, my wife's about to get so mad at me.
You have a bi-coastal wine collection.
Yeah. Just let me know when you expand on the East Coast. I'll be one of your first customers in that phrase.
Or she'll be happy that now she has a den in the basement, and she'll reclaim that, and it's not just for a bunch of wine. It's going to sit there for 10 years.
100%.
Always selling.
You are such a good salesman.
You are good. Yeah.
You gotta live what you preach.
That's it. So good. And just such a cool, fascinating aspect around wine. Just really appreciate you guys just kind of sharing your background, kind of the story of Rey Wine Center, teaching us a little bit just about, aging wine and treating it correctly, all that good stuff.
I think our listeners are going to get a lot out of that. So
agreed.
I appreciate you guys bringing that knowledge and that expertise to the show.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys bringing the knowledge, and then got to say too, appreciate you guys bringing a lovely bottle of wine. We've kind of been teasing it this whole time. I think it's time to go ahead and kind of get into this thing. And y'all were kind enough to send us a Keller Riesling for us to try today and to talk about a little bit. So just kind of curious to know, first off the bat, what was it about this wine that made this the one that you wanted to bring on and share with us?
Well, Riesling was my gateway drug to all of the larger things in the wine world. And that's because, I liked cocktails early on. I was a beer guy, and I wasn't really into the, big, heavy reds. And my aha moment was with the Riesling. And part of it is that it's fun. It's super bright and acidic. Obviously, there are great sweeter ones, and that's usually what most people associate with Riesling. But my aha moment was drier Rieslings. And you ask most professional sommeliers, I know they're a dying breed these days, but if you ask them, almost the top three unanimously, you'll have things like, obviously your steak and red wine's obvious ones, but the top ones that always come up are like fried chicken and champagne. Things like big Barolos with northern Italian pasta, like especially truffles. But for my money, almost every som I know will make time in their day to go to a tasting if it involves Riesling. They keep a lot of Riesling on hand. It's what they almost always suggest. And that's because, unlike the things I mentioned, like Barolo with very expensive, like truffles, that's very highbrow. Champagne and fried chicken, that's fun, but it still involves very expensive, like highbrow champagne with the fun of like fried chicken or something.
I actually didn't know that was a combo, champagne and fried chicken.
Exactly. It's a fantastic one, but it still has a pretty big barrier of entry to buy the champagne first. Riesling, by and large, usually isn't that expensive, and it ages beautifully because of super high acid. There's big minerality, and that structure holds on for years, decades. And it's best paired with most people's weeknight takeout, which would be like Thai food, your Szechuan, maybe Vietnamese. These are the cuisines that most Soms during the week, that's what we're eating, Tuesday through Thursday when we're off. We're not going to other restaurants because we're tired of working in restaurants. You go home and get some Thai food to go, have a nice off-dry Riesling with a little bit of sweetness and a tropical fruit to balance out the heat of maybe Szechuan peppercorn, or to kind of balance out the like fish sauce in Vietnamese food. And that's where the real magic happens.
Absolutely. Yep. Gosh, I love that. You're making me think too, because we had a pretty eye-opening experience too pretty early on when we were doing this show, where we had a Dom de Cant Werner Trocken Riesling, and it was a huge eye-opener for us too, Ryan. It's so funny that you had that experience with Riesling, because we were like, I think for some reason we were equating it to just sweet wine. You just think about that, but yeah, there's so many different, and sure, there's sweet Riesling, but there's really lovely complex Riesling out there.
And I think that's an interesting thing I love about this wine and this producer in particular. Now, Keller often gets mumbled around wine circles, and the word that comes up is like cult following. And then the other things that get mentioned are his Klaus-Peter Keller's wine, G-Max, which was named after his dad and his son, Max. That wine is some of the most hard to find, sought after wines in the world. We're talking dry Riesling that sells for $2,000 to $6,000 on the regular.
Lord.
And what's
5 racks for a
fascinating,
bottle of Riesling.
That's crazy.
Yeah, seriously, my God.
I have more wine geeks and collectors that have asked about access to that wine than, highbrow Burgundy and Barolos, because there's so little. And that's why it tastes so good. Klaus Peter's a notoriously small producer. By picking small, it gets better. But what's interesting too that I like about it is his family's estate goes back to the late 1700s, but it wasn't until 2001 that he really took the helm with his wife Julia to make these world-class wines. And ask any collector from the 70s, 80s, 90s, or especially when German wines were coming in, where this is from, the Rheinhessen, that was never equated to quality. It was always the Mosel Saarruhr at the time. And so the fact that Klaus Peter in the 21st century took this largely forgotten or just overlooked region of the Rheinhessen and started producing in the last 20 years some of the most world-class wines, just to careful vineyard management, not being super harsh with chemicals and doing everything by hand in small lots and making really good, precise wine, in 20 years has elevated himself to one of the greatest producers in the world, which is fascinating. And the kicker to all that, a lot of the best wines that he makes are still pretty entry level. This is, in the medium range of his, like $40 to $50. But every year he makes a great entry level Trocken that's, $25 to $30. And those are screw cap wines that would go fantastic with, pad thai. So you can enjoy something from one of the most sought after producers on a Tuesday night. And that's the thing I like about this, where you could do that, buy it off the shelf, pop it now. But if you let that wine go for 10 years, and I've had the luxury of trying those entry levels, maybe with 8 to 9 years on them, they turn magic. It's crazy. They like kind of sparkle. It's like, it's hard to describe. All the things that we usually use for flavors go out the window because it's more ethereal. It's lighter in body. The acid is calmed down. Simple lime notes have turned into more like key lime, and they're more custardy and complex, and all those things as you describe it make people want, like, I want to see what that tastes like. Well, yeah, just forget about some wine for 5 years,
That's cool that you mention entry level wines that still age well. I mean, that's something that I'm learning about all the time. I think that's so cool that you can just get a $30 or $40 bottle, forget you have it for 5 years, and then taste it, and it tastes that much better. I think that's so cool.
That is very cool,
Absolutely.
because you don't think about that as just a consumer. Usually the cheaper stuff, you're like, oh, I'm just going to drink this because I just spent $18 on it. So why would I lay this down? It's only a $20 bottle of wine. But, that perspective is interesting, because I don't think a lot of people are doing that with their cheaper entry level wines.
No.
Yeah, and the quality of wine across the board has all gotten better. Like we're all so aware of grocery brands. And the hard thing to say is that there's a lot of good wine in grocery stores these days. I mean, I love the fact that like things like Flowers, Etude, and other ones are fantastic wineries you can find at like Kroger's or things like that. And those wines go on sale all the time. And picking up a few bottles when they're on a red tag and then forgetting about it, that's a great way to surprise your friends. I know that almost all of our favorite bottles when we're hanging out with each other, because we've done the Zoom thing during lockdown and meeting up just once a year.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of hype on the expensive bottles because you're praying it's good. Like I spent a lot, I bet this better be good. But the ones that I was surprised, you're like, I picked this up, I kind of forgot about it, or a friend gave me this. It's got some age on it. Let's see how it goes. And those are the ones that end up being the real conversation starters. That it's not about how much I spent on it, but you talk about that wine more. And those are usually the mid-level stuff that, anybody can pick up.
Ryan, just off the top of your head, what would you say are 5 or 6 types of wine that benefit from aging, regardless of whether they're, expensive or cheap?
Great question.
That's a great question. I would say Riesling, number one, especially if it's with a little sweetness to it. That balance of sugar and acid is fantastic. Champagne, if you can afford it, but there's a lot of great inexpensive sparkling that people forget about. Your local wine shop probably has things like Cremant de Loire, aged Chenin, ages beautifully. Those are made just like champagne, but 1/5 the cost. Another one would be Burgundy. You don't have to go for Grand Crus, Premier Crus. Some of the best producers, their entry level Rouge or Blanc, those with 8 to 10 years are fantastic with time.
Awesome.
And, 2 more. Merlot, I think, is thankfully our younger generations never got to see that movie about sad boomers, so they don't worry about Merlot and
Well, you're not talking about Sideways, are you?
You can't say it. You can't say it.
You can't say it. I love Merlot, and there's a reason why it's kind of coming back, because you realize a lot of 20-year-olds just never saw that movie, and they don't mind being told to buy a Merlot. And those wines taste great because there's still such a response to that, as we've all just talked about. They're usually pretty inexpensive, and 9 times out of 10 of steakhouse sommelier, if you just tell me to surprise the table with something that goes with the steak, they're not pulling Cab, they're pulling Merlot. And those wines age really great. So how many is that? Champagne, Riesling,
Merlot,
French sparkling, Burgundy, Merlot.
That's like 5. I think you nailed it.
That's like
Nailed
Yeah,
it.
I gotta say, I do love that like the first 2 you named were white wines, because I feel like there's such an association with aging with red wine, right? That would definitely have been my own bias, like when I was first started learning about this. But the naming like the first 2 of like Riesling, Champagne, Cremant, like that's such a cool, I think, shift in thinking probably for a lot of folks of just like, no, there are white wines that you're going to want to age. I think the casual drinker isn't thinking that way.
Yeah, it would be 3 or 4, because I mentioned Burgundy and Rouge age as well, but white Burgundy with age is baller. Because despite the fact that we say we don't want tons of oak, but we don't want it to be super bright and laser beam. So that's where the minerality and the limestone, the chalk of white Burgundy, with time, it builds that nice bit of texture and unctuousness to give you a little bit of that sensation we want out of a slightly oaked Chardonnay, but without that super big buttery feel. And all of those bright acids and salty characteristics fade and the salt becomes more umami. That citrus melds and turns more into tropical fruit or baked goods and apple pie. And so that's where everything I talk about, it sounds a bit cheesy and romantic, because it is. Like that's where the romance of wine comes.
Absolutely.
Not when it's fresh. It's from, time with these wines,
100%.
Love that.
Yep. Beautiful. So at this point, guys, I know as we've been talking, having this great conversation, I know you guys have been sipping on this, enjoying it. I would just love to know, real quickly, what do you guys think of this? What are some of the notes that you're getting? Share with the listener what the experience is with this one. Colin, I'll go to you first, buddy.
Sure. Yeah, I think the one thing that stands out to me is the structure. The acidity on this wine is outstanding. If you love high acid wines, I mean, Riesling is a high acid grape. This absolutely hits that. The acidity is screaming. And correct me, somebody, if I'm wrong, but is there a little bit of residual sugar on this? Because
there is.
Okay, because there's some body to this wine, and that it's almost needed for that screaming acidity, and the sugar really balances out well.
Yeah, but you would never say this is sweet.
No, 100%.
Because
yeah, no, absolutely not. And I don't want to give the impression that this is sweet, but you could tell there is a little bit sugar, but it's what it's doing is necessary for that acidity.
Yeah, that acidity just is so nice and zippy and refreshing that it's hard to not want to keep drinking it, which is another reason I love Rieslings, because with the right food or the right, sunset on, you just kind of want to keep drinking that thing, Yeah. The other benefit of these slightly sweeter, Kabinett or Spätlese off-dry Rieslings, like this one, it's not super high in alcohol. This is
9%.
9%.
Yeah.
That's a nice.
Which,
that's-
thank
You
God,
could
'cause I've
drink
drank
a
half the
full
bottle
bottle
so far.
and
It is.
be on your way.
It's complex, but as you're kind of saying, there's a lot going on, but it's also incredibly easy to drink, right? This is one of those wines where you can sit here and you can pick through it if you want. There's some really nice minerality. There's some really nice fruit. The lime really comes through. But
and the aroma's really nice, right? Even before you get to the sip, it's just this really nice, citrusy, little floral, kind of aroma off the top that, once again, I feel like sometimes we have to dig a little bit more for some of the white wines we've had. And then this one, just right off the bat, you get this really nice, expressive aroma coming off the top.
Yeah, it's very generous. And I think that's the hallmark of why Keller elevated itself above most notable Mosel Rieslings, is that Mosel is known for slate. But Keller, as it says here on the bottle, they have limestone, and that's a lot more akin to Burgundy. And you get more of that salty or umami, but it's a little more generous. It's not as Mosel Riesling sometimes have that petrol suntan lotion.
None of
this doesn't really have it.
No.
It's just nice, zippy fruit. It smells like a salted margarita.
I love
Oh, that's
that.
such a good call.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely. That is a fantastic call out. Because yes, it does. My goodness.
And even, it's the, like I said, the acidity is really nice, and I think in the residual sugars gave me a little bit of a slightly not a heavy body, but a little more than you'd expect. But then when you said salted margarita, not just the smell, but I'm even getting that kind of it's the acidity, it's that lime and tequila kind of taste in the back of your throat. There's no tequila in this wine. There's tequila in your wine. Did I put tequila in my wine? But I'm saying, it has that. That was spot on. That's triggered something in my brain.
Yeah, all the best ones have it. And this one too, like a margarita drunk, when you finish a full bottle of Riesling, it is a much different sort of fun, energetic buzz than finishing a whole bottle of Chardonnay or Pinot Noir. Maybe it's because it's just that perfect 9%, but I'm already halfway through this and we're just kind of hanging around. It's just so refreshing.
It's refreshing. And this bottle particularly, it's just fun. I think a lot of those German Rieslings with that petrol note that you mentioned, they can be a little I don't know if heavy is the right word, but this is just light on its feet and it's fun and it's interesting. Those can be, they're not maybe as refreshing because they have that extra little note in there that doesn't necessarily lend itself to refreshing. But this wine is just we have a category called Porch Pounder on this show, which we usually reserve for our lesser wines that are just easy to drink a ton of. This is, calling this wine a Porch Pounder might be doing it a disservice, but it has that aspect to it where you can just drink a ton of it, no problem. It's really,
you
really
could pound it, but it's not.
Yes, you could pound
it's
it,
too
but
nice
shouldn't
to be.
because,
Yeah.
It's too
Porch
nice to be.
poundable.
Yes,
Yeah,
Porch Pound
exactly.
Bowl.
That's right.
Could be.
Exactly.
100%.
Having the luxury and the honor of meeting Klaus Peter a few years ago and talking about these wines, he would actually agree. It's he made this, and the culture itself makes this to be drank with some grilled meats, and it's not made to be a special. This is to go with their everyday cooking, And so while I mentioned the Thai and the Szechuan, like this with some sausages on the grill and some brats, like that's perfect. That's out. That literally is porch pounding, right? So we're not far off from. We're not doing a disservice, or we're not slighting and giving it a disservice to say we want to chug it outside.
Yeah, love that, and love shining the light on somebody who's doing it right too. 100%. So that's always something we want to do on the show. So anything else anybody wants to call out, or should we go ahead and jump into our review?
No, I think that was a great conversation.
Let's do it. All right,
review away.
Let's do it. As a reminder, here on the Stop Wasting Your Wine podcast, we don't believe in numbers when it comes to rating wine. We believe in the vibes and kind of the experience you want to have while you're drinking it. So, of course, we got our must shares. These are wines that are exceptionally good bottles of wine that have something extra special that deserve to be shared. Got our solid pours. These are just really good wines. We got our casual sippers. These are enjoyable, but not necessarily memorable. And then, of course, wines that are overvalued, lower quality, or just plain undrinkable. These are wastes of your wine. Of course, we all have our 3 coveted spots in our wine fridge as well for our favorite 3 wines that we drink. All right, so let's go ahead and do it. Colin, I will go to you first. Anything else you want to share and where you're going to place this thing?
Yeah, no, I don't think anything else I want to share, but I mean, for me, there's only one spot, and that's in my wine fridge. I mean, I love Riesling, and this is so right up my alley. Like, you couldn't have picked a better bottle of wine for me specifically. Like, this is the kind of wine that I love to drink, and this is executed at such a high level. I'm just enjoying the hell out of it. Like, it's just such a damn good bottle of wine. I only have 1 or 2. I think this might actually round out my wine fridge with the 3. But it's just so good. It's so enjoyable. Like we said, it's poundable, but there's enough in there too, where if you really wanted to dive into it and dissect it, you could absolutely do that as well. Just a really enjoyable experience all the way through. Just the structure so nicely balanced. I couldn't recommend this wine enough. If you like Riesling, definitely seek this one out. Even if you don't like Riesling, because I think this is definitely a bottle that could change some minds. Like if you have a negative idea of what Riesling is, I think this could absolutely change your mind and get you on the Riesling path, which is a great path to be on. So this is a wine fridge wine for me.
Nice. Amazing. Okay, Aaron, what do you think?
Oh, man, I'm in trouble. This is delicious. This is so good. I'm like hearkening back to my Dom Decant Werner debacle, where I did initially put it in my wine fridge, and then I made everyone vote to get it in.
We made one exception.
So I can't do that again. We made an exception, never again. No, this is great. I don't know why I don't buy more Riesling. I feel like every time I open like a dry Riesling, I'm like, this is great. And then like every time I go to the wine shop after that, I'm just a dummy and I buy other crap. This is so good. So yeah, no, this is going in my wine fridge. My wine fridge is full, which means I have to take something out, and I don't know so I think what I'm gonna have to do is I think I'm gonna take out the Amarone.
Yeah. Okay.
Only because I feel like I can find this a lot more. I'm looking around. I found all the 4 places that has it near me, and I think that price range is huge. The Amarone was great, and it had like kind of a $60 to $80 price range. It was delicious. But this like coming in at like $40, and actually a place near me, it's on sale for $29.99.
Oh my God!
I gotta go.
All of them. What are you doing?
Yeah. So why
are you still here?
Thanks for coming by. But like it's the affordability, it plays a huge role for me personally in value. And I'm just like, this is a really good, high quality wine that is affordable enough to buy a bunch of them. And you can age Riesling. So this is a 2023. And if I can get my hands on a few more of these, I'm going to stick a couple of them in the pantry and like put a sign on that says don't drink and see how they are in 5-10 years.
This is
absolute wine for wine.
Is nuts.
Yeah.
That's the steal of the year, I think. I don't know if you'd get better value than this at $30. That's crazy.
Absolutely. That's insane that it's $30 there.
It is currently sold out. Just if anyone's surprised, but like notify me. Put in there, but yeah, absolutely, 100%. This is delicious.
Nice. Damn. Well, I guess I should mention I'm totally bummed. I would enter my review here as well, but I am currently unexpectedly traveling, so do not have the opportunity to enjoy this with you guys, but I look forward to finding this where we are and giving this thing a go, because it sounds amazing. And Ryan and Shane, you guys nailed it. Amazing pick. Thank you so much for sharing this with us and opening our eyes a little bit to this.
Like
Yeah.
you looked deep into my soul before you sent us this and said, "This one is for you."
Oh, it's all Ryan. Honestly, this pick's all Ryan. I'm enjoying it just as much as you guys. This wine kicks butt. It's really,
Nice.
really good.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Well, my thought was so many people know GMAX, and everyone forgets that one of the most sought after wineries in the world. It's pretty easy to get some of the more affordable stuff, and you can drink it anytime. You don't have to, you don't have to splurge if you don't want to.
Love that.
Literally putting the cork back in mine and putting this out of my reach. Like I'm shoving it
Get it
away
away
from
from
me.
me.
I'm trying to. I
proud
can't
of
get
you.
the cork back.
Right? It's like, oh shucks, I
Another
can't
one
do
more
it.
thing we can do.
But I did pour myself one more glass in the meantime, but like moving it away. It's so good. And it's so drinkable. My God. As always, we always end our show with a little game. And when we have folks on, it's always fun because, you guys get to see into our ridiculous minds. So we call this game Pick Your Poison. And normally it's pretty much like Would You Rather. We're just going to give you two wine situations that we have themed around wine storage. And you need to very rapid fire just pick which awful situation you would rather deal with. So I'm gonna toss. We have three real fast. I'm gonna toss them at you. Then Ryan and Shane, you can give us which one you'd rather deal with super fast. All right, first situation. Pick your poison. Have a space that has the right temperature, but it's exposed to sunlight, or it's a completely dark space, but you don't have control over the temperature and it may fluctuate.
I think I would take the latter. I think you want to keep it protected from sunlight, and I think it's pretty unlikely that you're living in a furnace 24/7. So it'll probably be fine. I mean, that's my vote.
The two Floridians disagree with you, however.
Living in a furnace, I can tell you. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Ryan?
I would actually choose the former because trying to break the rules of the game, you can always just cover the wine.
Cheater.
Just get put it in a different box.
Loophole. There it is.
Next
Loophole.
Then you
level.
got the right temperature and just put it in a second box.
Okay.
In
Good
fact,
call.
Moving.
usually better to just rebox it anyway. Put it somewhere, that's a little more protected.
I'm going to give it to you because I didn't establish any rules of this game. No cheating in the future.
There are
well
no
done.
rules.
Well done.
Get out of
Both
here.
boys. All right,
Also,
number
I've
two.
never lived anywhere outside of California, so I may be biased in my answers.
Oh,
There
super
you
fair.
go.
Yeah. Now, being in New Jersey, I'm like, how bad could it get? And the two Floridians are melting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
100%
exactly.
humidity at 100 degrees is not nice.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah.
All right, number two, really fast. Pick your poison. A basement pantry that dips below freezing in the winter, or a pantry that spikes above 75 in the summer.
I would take the former. I think I think 75 is a more tolerable threshold than below freezing. But curious what you think, Ryan.
I would definitely take the one that spikes over 75 because, as I mentioned, once a wine freezes, you can't get it back.
Done deal.
Like,
Yeah.
occasionally spikes are fine and it may change the wine, but it won't make it undrinkable.
Mm-hmm.
All you Frosé drinkers, pay attention. You're drinking nothing.
Exactly.
Last one. Pick your poison. A space that can store 10 bottles upright or 3 bottles laying down.
Well, I can answer this one. It's
Please.
10 bottles upright as long as you're not keeping it more than 5 years, right, Ryan?
Yeah. And, just have more wine.
There we go. Yep.
Yes.
Solid.
Fantastic.
There it
Those are all excellent and helpful answers. The
Yes,
answers
indeed.
to that round were more helpful than any other time we've
Any
done
other
this game.
Yeah, it's usually just slop.
This whole
Usually
episode has
nonsense.
pretty much been more helpful than any other episode we typically
Yeah.
do.
That's fair.
Ain't that true?
I'm keeping notes.
Yeah, it's a big PSA. Don't
Exactly.
let your friends don't let friends store their wine over the fridge.
I
Yeah,
love
that's
it.
it.
T-shirt.
Perfect.
T-shirt.
Yeah, I think we just found our title.
Yep.
There it is.
Also, even
love
if you
it.
don't have a stove or oven next to your fridge, fun fact, refrigerators themselves generate heat because that's how they make things cold.
I
So
have
don't put
gas.
anything on a fridge that you don't want to cook.
Yeah. Yep.
The
See?
anti-fridge
Exactly.
storage gang. Here we are.
It's
Big Fridge is going to be pissed at us after this
No,
episode, but it's fine.
Yeah.
They're
if
coming
Big
for us.
Fridge is listening, please sponsor. All right. Listen, this has been so much fun. Shane, Ryan, you guys have been so generous with your time, generous with your knowledge, generous with sending this amazing bottle of wine that I can't wait to go try. Before we go, run by us again. How can folks, learn more about Del Rey Wine Center? Anything else you got going on? What should they go check out?
So check us out on Instagram. Just look up Del Rey Wine Center on Instagram. You can also check out our website, delreywineCenter.com, where there's a handy-dandy phone number in bold that'll connect directly to Ryan. and
Nice.
he can walk you through what type of space is the best fit for your needs. So delreywincenter.com or find Del Rey Wine Center on Instagram.
Awesome.
Just call and talk to Ryan. Ryan's a pretty cool guy, so just, call and chat with him.
Yeah. Give him a ring. And then, hey, Aaron, if the kids at home want to hang out with the Stop Wasting Your Wine podcast, what's the best place for them to go?
Absolutely. Again, check us out on Instagram, Stop Wasting Your Wine. Send us an email if you'd like to come on the show or you want to share a certain wine with us. You can find us at cheers@Stop Wasting Your Wine. And as always, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, and you can see all of our beautiful faces.
Amazing. Ryan, Shane, thank you guys again. Such a cool episode. Learned a ton. Really enjoyed everything here today. Aaron and Colin, you guys were here as well, and I appreciate that.
Okay, whatever.
Hey, listener, appreciate you for hanging out with us. Hope you had a great time, and we'll see you next week for another great episode. And in the meantime, just remember, stop wasting your wine.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.